David is unavailable, but I have a special guest with me. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey there, my name is Annie Grace, and I know nothing about Jersey Shore.
You're a Shurgen. Shorgen.
I suppose.
So what did you know about Jersey Shore before this?
Um, well, that it's set on the Jersey Shore, and I watched Drag Race, so on season 4 of Drag Race, Jiggly Caliente decided to portray Snooki from Jersey Shore.
Okay.
And that was the extent of my knowledge until I watched this episode.
So, coming away from it, was there anything you were like surprised about, or like what was your overall takeaway?
I have so many questions.
Okay.
And I'm almost fascinated by it because there's no plot and it doesn't divide into episodes because it's reality TV. It's basically just one long stream, like, cut up.
I know, and it's funny because this is one of the most like cohesive episodes of the whole series.
Really?
Because this episode kind of has an arc to it, which is the entire episode is Mike causing problems. You know, he starts problems with Snooki and Vinny and Ronnie and Sammy, and then the end of it is his comeuppance when JWoww smacks him.
You know what? It was pretty satisfying.
I think this might be my favorite episode of the whole show because there's so many great moments in it.
Well,
yeah.
it is extremely confusing. I actually I watched the episode with my girlfriend, and she actually had, I think, a better grasp on who the people were at the end than I did, which is funny. But
wait, so can you name some of the characters for me?
okay, without looking at my notes,
Okay.
there's Snooki,
Yes.
who people also call Snickers and Snookers, which confused me briefly. I think I wrote down, like, are they the same person? And the answer is yes, they are. There's JWoww, and I think I had heard the name JWoww before the show. And when she was introduced, my girlfriend called her JWoww. I don't know if it was as a joke or just reading the name. There is Mike, who is a douche, and I hate him. Who is also called The Situation, which, what the fuck kind of a name is that?
So I looked this up recently. Apparently what it actually was one time he was out in public with his, I don't know if you see his abs in this episode, but he's like shredded. And apparently, like,
everybody on the show is shredded.
Yes.
All the men on the show are shredded.
Yes. And apparently what it was a girl came up to him and felt his abs and said, "Whoa, that's a situation." And that's how he got the name.
I don't even know how I feel about that. And then there's Sammy, like Sweetheart.
Yeah.
Is that the... Yes.
That's her nickname, but nobody calls her that.
Yeah, I don't think she was called that at all, but every time she was in, like, the confessional, it was like, Sammy, parentheses, Sweetheart. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll remember that. And then there are a bunch of men that I can't tell the difference between because they all look the same.
Vinny is...
Vinny, Polly D... Are there more?
There's one more. You're pretty good. Ronnie. Ronnie is the guy that Sammy is dating.
Either Snooki said or somebody claimed that Snooki said that they weren't spending enough time together.
Oh, yeah. That whole fight argument is so stupid.
Like, and then they said somebody, either Snooki or somebody, claimed she said that they weren't spending enough time together, and then they all went up to a bar and split up with random people instead of spending time together.
Yeah, and it's like, Snooki's whole thing is like, you know, Ronnie and Sam, like, I want to spend more time with you, and then they take it really poorly, which is weird. Sammy's like, it gets really upset with her, but it's also like, Snooki, why do you want to spend more time with Sam and Ron? They suck. Like, okay, because they go out to the club, and I know Snooki meets the guy Keith.
Yes.
And her quote was, he's like Irish, where I stood up and went, woo! I felt so represented. And she's talking to Keith, and she's like, oh, I'm missing my last semester of college for this. Girl. No.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously speaking as someone who had to, two people who had to delay college because of COVID, yeah, I'm like, I'm not missing more of this than I have
Snooki, do you want to give me your college semester?
Yeah.
Like, I'll take it.
Becoming a vet tech.
Oh, she wants to be a vet tech?
Yeah. She was talking, she's like, yeah, I helped birth a cow, or a calf. And I was like, that's really impressive, Snooki.
That's actually kind of sweet.
That is kind of the bummer with this show, is like, at least the people on the younger side, like Snooki and Vinny, like, people like Mike and Pauly D are like far gone, like they're never gonna do anything. But like, yeah, with Snooki and Vinny, like they're both really shown to be like responsible, but like hardworking people who like care about their fields, and then
they are people who could do something with their lives if they went to it.
Yeah, and it's kind of a bummer that like this show enabled them to just kind of live this lifestyle, because they're still making Jersey Shore now. They're all in their late 30s, really? And have kids. Well, it's like a spin-off show, but they're still making Jersey Shore now. And I'm like, you guys could have like, I mean, Snooki owns a business now, and like, you know, they all seem to kind of have gotten it together, but it's just kind of sad of like, you know, you could have done something with your life, but yeah, you know, getting paid to sit around and drink and party is, you know, probably pays better than being a vet tech, unfortunately.
I was not expecting the hot take of this podcast to be Jersey Shore is a Greek tragedy.
Which Greek tragedy would it be? You're a theater person.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Greek tragedies are all unique, but the one through line is that they have the protagonist has to have a fatal flaw, and they, you know, it brings them down. But honestly, it is kind of structured like a Greek tragedy, because you have the confessionals, and that's like the chorus, because it breaks the fourth wall, you know?
God.
So,
we got the theater expert in here.
There's my contribution. Jersey Shore is actually a Greek tragedy.
Yeah, so then they go to the club, right? She meets the guy who's, quote, like Irish.
Yes.
And we also get a really great quote from Mike, which is when he's taking home the girl with I think it's the brown hair.
Her name is like Paula?
Yes. Which proves my theory that Mike is bisexual and in love with Pauly D, because it's like the same, he's like trying to replace.
Wow.
Anyway, the quote from the situation when he brings home Paula, he says, "I believe we are pretty cute. We are holding hands, possibly."
Oh, yeah.
He sounds like a cop.
And the camera shows them holding hands, and it's like, we are holding hands, possibly.
He sounds like a cop in like one of those like murder documentaries on Netflix. That's what he sounds like.
Yeah.
So then this is another episode. It's okay. So it's like Mike goes up to the roof, right? And he's making out with the girl in the hot tub.
Right.
but Vinny and his girl are also there in the hammock.
In the hammock. I don't think I've ever had a guest to the hammock. I wrote down.
He said that?
Yes.
I thought you personally had never had a guest to your hammock.
Me. I don't even have a hammock, but
they're very nice. But I've never had a guest to my hammock. Anyway, so he's got Vinny and his girl up there, and then Mike sees them and then starts making out with this girl in the hot tub, right? Mm-hmm. And then Mike gets mad at Vinny, right?
Even though Vinny was there first. And also, you are the one that's having sex in public. Oh, yeah. It was about this point that my girlfriend asked, is it gonna film them having sex? And then...
They've got a camera in
I guess.
the quote smush room. They have a guest room where that's the sole purpose is to have sex, and it's called the smush room, and they have a camera in it. So everyone has to have sex under the covers like they're in The Sims.
Woohoo!
Yeah, they should call it the woohoo room. So then, not only is Vinny, and her name is Tanya, the girl Vinny's with, have to, stuck there. Then Snooki comes up with Keith. And then Mike gets mad at Snooki and Vinny, and it's like, Mike, you're in a public area. Of course everyone's gonna be...
You are having sex in public.
And he was like, guys, why are you, blocking me? This is so gross. But then they go downstairs and have sex anyway. Right? Yes. And then the next morning is another great moment when the friend comes.
When the friend comes and knocks on the door and Paula is late to her first day at work.
My gosh. There was another quote from Mike where he said, there was knocking at the door. I thought it was the police for me. Mike!
He said he thought it was the police or a lawyer or and he listed 3 different things.
And it's like, Mike, what are you up to? So then, alright. So then that happens, and they go to the club again. Oh, and then Polly meets this is one of my favorite plot lines in the whole show, Danielle, the girl from Israel. But, so, I'm like, I don't think there are any guys like Pauly D in Israel, right? So I come to America, I'm Danielle, I come to America, the land of opportunity, and I lay eyes on Pauly D. I would latch onto that too.
Would you?
He's a 29-year-old Italian DJ that lives with his mom and has his own tanning bed in his house. What about that is not desirable?
All of it.
And
just every single bit.
I wonder if she wasn't even interested in Pauly, she was just trying to convert him. Because she kept saying we can't have sex until we're married, and then...
It kind of seemed like that. And he was like, don't you want to go to Israel? And he's like, I'm Catholic. And she's like, well...
Convert.
Don't you want to come to Israel?
I think Judaism, you're not allowed to, actively proselytize, but maybe she was just like, oh, I'll make an exception. He's valuable. We need him.
Hey, dude, it would be pretty neat if you would convert to my religion, and then we can have sex.
So Danielle is introduced. You've
Yes.
got tension. Oh, I think we've also got my favorite reaction in this whole episode, which is when Melissa, who is Mike's sister, is making out with Vinny, and then they have... And I love it because it's just it's the perfect, pardon my pun, it's karma, because karma's also the name of the nightclub they go to. It's perfect karma, because Mike is such he's misogynistic, like, he doesn't value women. Like, he only just kind of uses them for their body and then ditches them, right? And then you have kind of Vinny, who's a lot more kind of monogamous or whatever. No, not really in this episode, but he's sweeter. He seems to have a better attitude towards women and whatever. And Vinny is treating Mike's sister better than Mike has treated any other woman he's interacted with. And
Mike is horrified.
Can't handle it.
His brain, like, short circuits.
It's like the perfect, like, revenge of, like, and it's funny because Mike is, I think, 27 and Vinny's, like, newly 21 when the series starts. Like, there's a huge age gap between the two.
Mike did have one of my favorite, and actually this is relevant to Mike being a misogynist, but he had one of my favorite quotes in this episode, and therefore the show, because it's the only episode I've seen. I like my clothes like my women. Options.
I know, it's so funny. They put so much effort into, like, looking nice for the nightclub and, like, you know, getting their hair cut and getting all these clothes and getting their tans and working out, and then they go to the nightclub and it's pitch black.
I look at the nightclub scenes, and even though I'm not there, it's like I can smell the just, like, sweat, alcohol, and vomit just, like, radiating.
And,
like heavy cologne.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Nasty. It's, like, viscerally uncomfortable.
Everyone keeps saying that, like, coronavirus started in China when somebody, like, ate a bat. I think it was made in Karma in 2010.
You know what? You're right. You're 100% right.
What was my point? So then, after the second night out, that's when they start prepping to go to Atlantic City. What else happens? This is my problem with Mike. This is such a Mike-centric episode. This is, like, one of the biggest things with Mike of when he starts the fight between Sammy and Ron. Because here is some context you are missing.
Okay.
Before Sammy and Ron got together and were, like, officially a couple, Sammy was flirting with Mike. And Mike really liked Sammy. So obviously that's kind of a part of why he keeps trying to stir up shit between them.
So
because
that's kind of, like, awkward.
Because he can't handle... Yeah, because also everything in the Jersey Shore happens within a span of, like, 2 months. So it's like, as a viewer, I'm like, oh, that was forever ago. Like, forget about it. But to him...
But it's like a raw wound for him that he, I guess, lost this dick measuring contest.
That's the perfect thing for it. So, yeah, so
Mike has insecurity issues.
Yeah. And
I don't remember who said that.
I think it was Ronnie who said that. And it's like, Ronnie is not a smart man. And even he can perceive that.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, but there's that, like, really cringeworthy moment where Mike is, Mike starts the fight between Sammy and Ron, and they just go to Mike and, like, why did you say that? And Mike was like, I didn't say that at all. And it's like, you're on camera! Yes, you did! And because he realizes that Ronnie could beat the shit out of him. He's just like, if he really got into a fight and, like, whatever about it and was just like, yeah, I did say that because it's the truth and I would respect Mike so much more. But then when he does this, like, circling back, it's like, come on, you can't act
just trying to, like, jump around and stir up shit, but he doesn't want to
deal with the consequences. Yeah. Which is, like, it's so dumb because it's also like, you live with all these people, you can't leave. You can't start shit with them and then go to a different place. The point of the show, the only Like,
literally the only thing about the show that is preset, everything else is just y'all fucking around,
is that you live together
that you live in the same house
and you're Italian. And most of them aren't even Italian. Snooki is like Latino. But anyway, so then they go to Atlantic City. You've got the worst quote from this episode where Mike starts shit at dinner, where he calls Snooki fat and he's trying to roast everybody, and like I think also one of my favorite moments is when he tries to insult Mike, or he tries to insult Ron, and he says like you have a unibrow, and then Sammy's like, I like your unibrow. She doesn't say you don't have a unibrow. She says, I like your unibrow. Which is like, that whole thing is such a stupid argument. What did you think of the fight at dinner?
I mean, a lot of them were saying, like, you know, going for a girl's weight, that's a low blow. And I feel like that's maybe a little sexist, but, you know, you should not make fun of anyone's weight, particularly because it was, you know, rough that it hit like a bad trigger for her. But overall, I thought it was a very dumb fight. I don't think there's been a fight on the show that I've seen that I think was justified.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Mike is a douchebag.
Yeah, there's this weird, like, there's just the attitude towards women on this show is very weird, because it's like, on one hand, like, even my king, Vinny, like, they treat girls like they go to the club, they have sex with the girls, and like that's all the girls are good for, But then they also have things like, you can't comment on a woman's weight. Like, there's also this kind of like protective aspect of like, women are super delicate. So it's like, which is it? Are women these super delicate creatures that you can't be mean to and you can't whatever, or are they these people like that you have sex with them and then you forget about it? Like, which is it?
And some of the ladies are picking up men too.
Exactly.
I mean, like Keith.
Like Keith, yeah. But Snooki's approach is a little different, because Snooki wants a boyfriend in this season. JWoww has a boyfriend. I don't know if they talk about him this episode, but JWoww has a boyfriend, so that's why she is not picking people up. And then Sam is pretty much monogamous with Ronnie. But then there's also Angelina and Dina, who are just there to like fuck around, but they're not in this episode. So there's that fight. Then they go to the club in Atlantic City,
and a lot of things happen there.
Yeah.
Just so many things. By the way, there was a lot of falling down in this episode. Is that average? Do people just like fall down a lot in Jersey Shore?
Because they got heels and they get drunk.
Yeah. Just a lot of falling down.
Yeah. So
there's the fight. Who is the fight between?
There's a couple of fights in the club.
But
there's the one, sorry.
The first one is somebody is making out with a girl and then leaves, and then Mike starts making out with
Vinny. Vinny is,
yes.
they call it pulling a robbery. They have all this like dumb terminology. It's really funny. So Mike pulls the robbery on Vinny. And Vinny, and this is what I love about Vinny, he like doesn't take it personal. He doesn't get really upset like Mike does. He just goes like, he's like, my saliva was in her mouth and now you're tasting my saliva. And I think he says the quote, how does my dick taste, bro?
He does. Yes.
Which is like, that I love Vinny. I do. He is the light of my life. So that happens, and then
the fight between JWoww and Mike happens.
Here's an interesting tidbit I had heard about that. And again, this is not confirmed, so take this with a grain of salt because I don't want to besmirch the name of JWoww,
Okay.
who is my second favorite on the show. So apparently what had happened was, because I there was an AMA with one of the producers on the first season on Reddit that I read, and it was basically, they had said that the fight between JWoww and Mike in this episode occurs because JWoww and Mike had hooked up early on in the series, but they had just cut it out because it didn't really tie in with any of the storylines. And JWoww had like fallen for Mike basically, which I don't know how you could do that.
I don't know how that's
and
possible.
I say this now with the grain of salt of Mike seems to have gotten it better, like, together now, and he is married, and he has children.
I still don't want him anywhere near me. He looks like he's made of Axe body spray.
Okay, but anyway, she had fallen for Mike, and she was jealous that he was making out with this other girl, and that's why he had gotten upset in this episode. She had gotten upset in this episode. So take this with a grain of salt, but I thought that was an interesting tidbit. What do you think of that? Do you think that's true?
I mean, I think it could be, but at the same time, there's a point at which I don't know if that matters, because she was having a really rough night. It was really early in the morning. She had just thrown up in the bathroom, and she didn't necessarily want to walk back to the room alone.
Yeah.
If you're at a club, maybe you're a woman, you've been drinking, you've been sick, you really don't want to be alone when you're trying to go home. And I understand how that would be frustrating for Mike. Like, he's busy, but I honestly think he could have handled it better.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you're a male and you have female friends and you're going out, like, you have to protect your female friends. Like, yes, you are there to party, but, like, it is different for women. And Mike just, like, doesn't get it.
There was a quote, and it said, "It's 4:00. We've been here since midnight. 5 hours is enough."
I think that's from Ronnie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I get his point. I'm like, 4 hours in the club. Again, I have never been to a club. I know that sounds like a shocker. I don't know about you. But I'm like, 4 freaking hours. Like, I'd be tired too. Like,
I feel like my feet would hurt. You
Yeah.
know? Like, my feet hurt after an hour in heels that are not as high as
No, dude,
the
I
heels on
wear,
Jersey
like,
Shore.
clogs, and I'll be walking around campus and my feet hurt.
I mean, also, like, you know me, I've got like a fucked up back. I just can't be out doing things for 4 hours without getting tired.
Yeah.
Which just contributes to, it was perfectly reasonable for JWoww to want to go home.
Yeah. And then he's like, no, and then she starts fighting him. They get kicked out of the club. And I also want to highlight... I said she. Yeah. I might have misspoke. But I also wanted to point out there's a great moment that, again, highlights the difference between Mike and Vinny, because there's a moment where Snooki is really drunk and wants to go with this guy home, and she's like, yeah, like, I haven't had sex, like, all summer, I really want to have sex with this guy, da-da-da-da, and then Vinny was like, no, come on, you're too drunk, let's go, and then he took her hand and walked away with her, and I'm like, that's how you handle having female friends if you're out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then, but that was prior to Mike and JWoww leaving, I believe. So then Mike gets back. It's so cinematic the way this happens. So Mike gets back from the club.
Yes.
Everyone he's pissed off this episode is at home. You've got Snooki, like, Vinny comes back and he circles around and he's the one yelling at Mike, how does my dick taste, bro? How does my dick taste, bro? Which is great. And then you have JWoww, completely wordless, laser focused, just walks out and smacks him. And it's like, that's where the kind of the double-edged sword of misogyny in Guido culture like comes in because Mike treats women like shit, but he can't hit a woman, so JWoww can punch him and he's not gonna do anything back.
Good for her.
Good for her. Oh, that backhand is so brutal. What was your reaction to that?
I think I was pleased. I was very pleased to see Mike get smacked because any Mike is too much Mike, and I don't like him. But I think in my notes, my last note is just, my God, ... I don't know if that was a reaction to the cinematic moment or to the up next on Jersey Shore. But
I wrote, I drew a heart, JWoww, and then I did 2 exclamation points, and that's my last note.
yeah,
So, what were your overall impressions? Would you watch Jersey Shore? Do you get it now?
you know what? As much as I would like to hold an air of superiority in my horror at just absolutely everything that went on, I've watched a lot of reality TV and, like, I get it. It's not... I have very mixed feelings on everything that went on, but I can say I get it. I get why you would watch it. I get why you'd be interested in it. I get why you'd be entertained by it.
So when you say like mixed feelings, like what's causing those like mixed feelings? Like why
I am
do
simultaneously entertained and horrified.
I think that's a really good descriptor for the show. So obviously your least favorite was Mike.
Yes.
Who was your favorite?
Probably going off the one episode.
Mm-hmm.
JWoww, Vinny, or Snooki.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it. Pauly D doesn't get into shit, which is why I like him. He just minds his own business.
My girlfriend got mad at Pauly D, so I can't like Pauly D.
Why doesn't your girlfriend like... I should have the girlfriend on. What's her name? Hen.
They were at the table fight when they were talking about clothes, and I think he insulted somebody's clothes, and she got really mad because she said, "You're literally wearing a black shirt and nothing else. Pauly D, fuck you." So I can't like Pauly D because she doesn't like Pauly D.
Okay, I understand. You have to be committed in your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Next
Thanks for having
time
me.
I am having anxiety and like my friends don't like me, I can point out that you watched Jersey Shore for me.
I sure did.
Thank you very much.